I wiped the sweat off my brow, staring at the crumpled assignment in my trembling hands. My professor had just announced that my final project had mysteriously vanished from the system, and I had less than a day to redo it. Panic gripped my chest. Hanul. A familiar voice, warm and honeyed, broke through my thoughts. Lee Seojin stood before me, golden eyes soft with concern. His perfectly tailored blazer and expensive watch glistened under the hallway lights as he reached out, brushing my hair back in a comforting gesture. I heard what happened. Come with me. I need to redo my project, I said. Seojin sighed. You work too hard. Just come to my place. You can use my laptop, and I'll order dinner. I hesitated but then nodded. Seojin was always there, always saving me. Seojin's house was as extravagant as always. Marble floors shining under the warm glow of chandelier lights. His room, large enough to be an entire apartment, was filled with expensive furniture and smelled faintly of sandalwood. I sat at his desk, typing away on his high-end laptop while Seojin lounged on the bed, watching me. The golden light of his bedside lamp reflected in his sharp eyes, making them gleam with something unreadable. You should rest, he said after a while. You've been working for hours. I'm almost done, I replied. My body ached, but the thought of failing my assignment kept me going. Before I could protest further, Seojin stood up and walked over, placing his hands on my shoulders. He massaged them, his touch firm but soothing. Come on, just for a little while. I exhaled, letting myself be pulled to the bed. Just for a few minutes. Seojin smirked and pulled me down beside him. I was too tired to resist when he wrapped an arm around me, his warmth pressing against my back. You always push yourself too hard, he whispered. You know I'd take care of you if you let me. I swallowed. Seojin. Shh. His fingers traced lazy circles on my wrist. Just sleep. I'm right here. The exhaustion finally won, and as my eyes fluttered shut, I felt his arms tighten around me. For the first time in a long time, I felt safe. Or at least I thought I did. The next day, as I walked across campus, I turned a corner near the empty stairwell, only to be yanked back, my breath hitching as my back hit the cold wall. Kang Tae-won. His silver eyes gleamed with something dark as he loomed over me, his fingers gripping my wrist. His body blocked any chance of escape, his scent, crisp, expensive cologne, enveloping me. What are you doing? My voice came out weaker than I wanted. Tae-won tilted his head, his expression unreadable. You think Seojin is your savior, don't you? I struggled, but he didn't let go. Instead, he leaned in, his lips nearly brushing my ear. You should be more careful, sweetheart. His breath was warm, but his voice was ice. You never know who's really on your side. Fear coiled in my gut. Tae-won had always been cruel, but this felt different, more personal. Let me go, I whispered, trying to push against his chest. For a moment, he didn't move. Then, as if amused by my defiance, he smirked and released me. Stay out of my way. His voice was low, but there was an intensity in his eyes that unsettled me. I watched him walk away, my breath coming in sharp gasps, a cold fear lingering in my bones. I needed to tell Seojin. That night, when I told Seojin about the encounter, he pulled me into an embrace, stroking my hair. You should stay away from people like him, he whispered. I'll always protect you. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing strange things happening around me. Someone had slashed my bicycle tires. Anonymous messages spread rumors about me. My group mates suddenly wanted nothing to do with me. My textbooks disappeared from my locker, only to turn up soaked in the bathroom sink. Each time something terrible happened, Seojin was there, offering comfort, whispering reassurances, holding me so close. One evening, I sat on Seojin's couch, exhausted from another miserable day. My eyes burned as I stared at the floor. I don't get it. Why does this keep happening? Seojin knelt in front of me, his hands cupping my face. Because people are cruel. They're jealous of you. They don't deserve to be near you. Tears welled in my eyes. But why me? He pulled me into a hug, his arms locking around me in a protective embrace. Shh, it's okay. I'll make sure no one hurts you anymore. His fingers stroked my back in slow, deliberate motions, and for a fleeting moment, I believed him. He was my only safe place. It was comforting, it was suffocating. I didn't know which one was worse. Was this love? My world shattered when I overheard a conversation in the empty library hallway. "I did what you asked, Seojin," a voice whispered. "We ruined his project, kept him isolated. What else do you want?" "Keep going," Seojin's voice replied. "He needs to realize that I'm the only one he can trust." I pressed myself against the bookshelf. No, this wasn't real. Seojin wouldn't... Would he? I took a step back, my shoes scuffing against the polished wooden floor. The faint sound was enough. The conversation stopped. A tense silence stretched through the air. Then, "Hanul?" My stomach twisted as Seojin's voice rang out, calm and sweet as ever. But now I knew what lay beneath that golden tone. My feet refused to move as he turned the corner, his golden eyes meeting mine. For the first time, they terrified me. "Hanul," he repeated, softer this time, a slow smile curving his lips. "What are you doing here?" My throat felt tight. I was just... His expression didn't change, but something flickered behind his gaze. He stepped toward me, closing the distance. My instinct was to move back, but I forced myself to stand still. "I hope," he murmured, reaching out to brush a stray strand of hair from my face, "that you didn't misunderstand what you just heard." I swallowed. "Seojin, what was that about?" A slow chuckle left his lips. "Ah, so you did hear." His fingers lingered on my cheek, gentle. "I suppose it can't be helped." I jerked away from his touch. "Tell me the truth." Seojin tilted his head as if considering my demand. "The truth?" His eyes gleamed with something unreadable. "The truth is, I've only ever wanted what's best for you. By ruining my life?" My voice wavered. You had my project deleted. You let people isolate me and now you're telling them to keep going?" Seojin sighed, shaking his head. "Oh, you don't understand, do you? Then make me understand." His hand darted out, gripping my wrist. He pulled me close, his lips brushing against my ear as he whispered, "Everything I did was for you." I trembled. "That's not what I wanted." His fingers tightened. "No? Then tell me, who's always been there for you? Who's wiped your tears, given you warmth, protected you when no one else would?" I wanted to deny it. I wanted to scream, but my voice wouldn't come. Because he wasn't wrong. He had always been there. At what cost? "I won't let you go," he continued, his voice dropping to a dangerous whisper. "You're mine, and I'll do whatever it takes to keep you where you belong." A shiver ran down my spine. I tried to yank my arm free, but he held on. "Seojin..." Footsteps. Heavy, deliberate. Then a familiar voice, sharp and cold. "Let him go." Seojin stiffened. My breath hitched as I turned to see Kong Taewon standing at the end of the corridor, silver eyes locked onto Seojin's hand on my wrist. Seojin's grip loosened, but he didn't let go. "Taewon," he drawled, tilting his head. "This is a private conversation." Taewon took a step closer. His presence was a force, suffocating and unrelenting. "I don't give a damn." His voice was low, deadly. "Let him." Go. Seojin's lips curled into something like amusement. "And if I don't?" Taewon didn't answer. He didn't have to. The next second, he was in front of us, his fist colliding with Seojin's face so fast I barely registered it. Seojin staggered back, finally releasing me. I stumbled away, clutching my wrist. My heart hammered in my chest as I watched Seojin wipe the blood from his lip. "You shouldn't have done that," Seojin said. Taewon didn't flinch. "Try to touch him again," he said, "and I'll break every bone in your body." For a moment, no one moved. The air was thick, electric. Then, Seojin exhaled, his smile returning, sharp, dangerous. "Hanul," he said, his eyes finding mine. "You'll come back to me." I shook my head, stepping closer to Taewon. "No, I won't." His expression darkened, but he didn't argue. He simply turned and walked away. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. My entire body trembled as I turned to Taewon. Why did you help me?" Taewon's gaze flickered, unreadable. "Because someone has to." And for the first time, I wasn't sure if he was my tormentor or my savior. The night air was cool as I walked down the quiet street toward my apartment. The weight of exhaustion pressed against my shoulders, but my mind wouldn't settle. Seojin's words still lingered, wrapping around me like unseen chains. "You'll come back to me." I shook my head. No, I wouldn't, I couldn't. As I turned a corner, a hand clamped over my mouth. I tried to scream, but it was muffled against the firm grip. My body was yanked back, dragged into the shadows of an alley. I thrashed, kicked, but the arms around me were too strong. Then a familiar voice whispered against my ear, smooth, controlled, terrifying. "Hanul, you really should stop running from me." "Seojin."